We have with us Professor C.Christine Fair. She's a professor at Georgetown University and a South Asia expert and has written extensively on Pakistan. Professor Christine, you've recently written a book on the Laskhar-e-Tayyaba?
Yes. It is called, in their own words, Understanding Laskhar-e-Tayyaba. Mm-hmm. And the book is a little bit different than some of the other books. Like, for example, my colleague wrote a superb book, Stephen Tankle. Mm-hmm. His book focuses more on what Lashkar does and where it has done it. My book really focuses more upon how Lashkar thinks and what domestic political role the organization plays within Pakistan. So it's a very different kind of book, and the empirical bases of the book, or the data that I use, are basically a curated sample of their extensive written publications that I've been collecting since like 1995.
I see. Yeah, because I was just going to ask you, how did you get into the mind of the Lashkar?
You know, I mean, the thing is, like, they published extensively. And then even after, I got kicked out of Pakistan, I can't go back because of my work on the Pakistan Army. Mm-hmm. And in some ways, this Lashkar book is a sequel to Fighting to the End, because Fighting to the End basically argues, here's the Pakistan military strategic culture. It's got an army that can't win a war. It's got nuclear weapons it can't use. So its key strategy is using militants, terrorists, whatever you want to call them, under its nuclear umbrella. And so there's another book that I'm working on next, which looks at Pakistan's imaginary of how nuclear weapons figure in its creation of security. So anyways, I can't go back to Pakistan, but then I learned that the American Library of Congress buys Lashkar materials.
Really?
Yeah. So I just requested interlibrary loan. Yeah.
So how does the Lashkar think?
Well, I mean, it depends on the topic. So one of the things I think people are very confused by, because everyone wants to conflate them with Al-Qaeda, wants to conflate them with the Islamic State. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I see them added categorically as being kind of the same thing. Lashkar is militantly opposed to Islamic State. Mm-hmm. Lashkar is militantly opposed, literally militantly opposed, to this notion of takfir. They do not believe in any sectarian killing. And this has actually put them in ISIS's crosshairs in Pakistan, right? ISIS considers Lashkar to be an apostate organization. Mm-hmm. So you have these interesting articles written by, and of course they publish under the name of Jamaat al-Dawa, of course. Yeah. But you'll have these interesting arguments being made by Jamaat al-Dawa against the Islamic State in response to things that the Islamic State has done. And one of the fellows, he is the PR spokesperson for the party that they just stood up, right, the MML. Mm-hmm. That fellow actually did his master's at Pakistan's NDU, and his master's thesis is available. You can go and find it. And in this thesis, he's arguing that Laskhar-e-Tayyaba is the most effective tool to defeat ISIS in Pakistan. So it's actually, what I find is there's just so much about this organization that's completely out in the open, and we just don't exploit it adequately.
You just mentioned that the Laskhar-e-Tayyaba doesn't believe in sectarian killings, but they've carried out two very dastardly attacks, terror attacks in India, the parliament attack.
That's the difference. Okay, so one has to be very clear. So in Pakistan, what sectarian killing means is a Sunni killing a Shia. Right? Yeah. Shia are not killing Sunnis. I mean, that happened maybe in the 90s. For the most part, all of those groups have been done away with. There are some examples, some exceptions like in Quram, but they're really self-protection because the Sunnis are killing Shia. The other sectarian attack that happens, and these are all Deobandis, by the way. Deobandis are mostly doing this. Deobandis kill Shia. Deobandis also kill Barelvis. So that's what sectarian killing is. And that's different from, say, communal, where they're killing members of a different faith altogether. So Lashkar is opposed to sectarian killing. Within Pakistan, opposed to sectarian killing, which means outside of Pakistan, maybe they think differently. Inside Pakistan, they're even opposed to killing Hindus. They're very clear about this. Hafiz Saeed has issued declaratory statements declaring Hindu temples to be off limits. They believe that Hindus instead should be proselytized.
But can he be trusted, Hafiz Saeed? Maybe he's just posturing.
You're not understanding. This is within Pakistan.
Yeah, I understood that.
Right. They don't do this in Pakistan. Huge misconceptions. Lashkar does not do this within Pakistan. And their logic is very simple. When you're taking a bath, you don't use your bathtub to go to the bathroom, right? LAT is a tool of the state to suppress domestic violence. Now, obviously, they kill Hindus abroad. They've got no problems with that. They don't even have problems killing Muslims, right? In India, we saw the Mumbai attack. They mowed down people who were very clearly Muslims. So there's the way the organization behaves within Pakistan is very different from how it behaves outside of Pakistan. And so my book mostly focuses on what they're trying to do within Pakistan. And my argument is the following. If you only see them as having utility in killing Indians and also killing in Afghanistan, you're missing half the story. Because the reason why the Pakistani state invests in them so heavily is that they are a voice against these groups that have killed so many Pakistanis. And that's the other piece of the puzzle that I think until now people didn't appreciate.
How do you see the Imran Khan-led government in Pakistan? Do you think that he will be able to do anything against terror elements in his country?
He's irrelevant. Bluntly speaking, he's not even the mayor of Islamabad, right? His writ doesn't even extend to Abhara, which is the ISI headquarters, which is in Islamabad.
Yeah, you've just written a piece. I saw a piece you wrote on how the army is really...
The army's in charge, right? And so, if I were an Indian, I would be wary of a Pakistani prime minister bearing peace. Because what we have seen time and time again is that whenever an Indian prime minister takes the bait and they do some kumbaya stuff, maybe Modi goes to India and they have some matching vests, or maybe he comes here and they hold hands, and they walk through Old Delhi and reminisce. What happens? There's a terrorist attack here. You can set your watch to it. The most explicit and outrageous example of this was Kargil itself, right? Because what Nawaz Sharif and Vajpayee did, this was the most credible peace overture. And these men were hardliners in their respective constituencies, the only people who could make peace. And the army was so afraid of that that they launched Kargil. So I would just say be very wary of believing peace from a Pakistani prime minister. He can't deliver it. And if you indulge that, you can set your watch by the next terror attack.
So it means that there is really going to be no lasting peace between India and Pakistan?
No, there won't be. And the reason is the Pakistan army won't survive it. If there were to be genuine peace between India and Pakistan, how can the Pakistan army justify its existence as it exists? Right? So that's why every time there's a genuine sign of rapprochement, the army sabotages it.
Can the US build some pressure on the Pakistani army to have some kind of reconciliation with, say, India?
Whether or not the US could do it, the US won't do it.
Why?
Well, the Americans have had, I think one of the best expositions of this was the book written by Tazy Schaefer and her deceased husband, Howard Schaefer, about the limits of diplomacy. The Americans have tried over and over and over again, and it goes nowhere, right? It really creates ill will, quite frankly, in both countries.
So what does this mean for the future of India and Pakistan as neighbors?
Well, what it means is that Indians are going to continue to die, right? But I'm going to point out that every day in India, there's a massacre on the roads, right? And you're paying this price because of India's prosperity, right? Because Indians become more wealthy, they can afford more cars, and you have more car accidents, and you're looking for affordable cars, and the cars are not very safe, right? So what India has done, maybe they don't say this explicitly, but you can discern it from India's behavior. India's basically said, look, we're going to put up with this. We're not going to have an outright war with Pakistan. In any event, a war probably isn't winnable. And we're going to focus on our economy. and we're going to grow our economy so that we can continue to invest and modernize our defenses. And basically, Pakistan will be self-marginalizing over time, right? And I hope that Afghanistan will be able to adopt a similar policy. But you know that Indians are going to die. But this sounds crass, but as I said, every single day there's a massacre of Indians on the road, right? And one day more Indians die on the road than all Pakistan-sponsored terror combined over the course of the whole year. The difference is people, and this is true in my country too, it's daily. In fact, our fatality on the road is really quite similar when you control for our respective populations. People don't politicize car fatalities, but we politicize terror attacks, right? So I think this is what the Indian government is essentially doing, is it's accepting that this is going to happen. They're going to do what they'll do covertly, right? That's the best thing about covert things, is they stay covert. Bad part about covert stuff was when people talk about them. And so there'll be these covert games going back and forth, but it's going to be more of the same.
Thank you so much, Professor Fair, for talking to us.
Thank you so much.